Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singers, songwriters, and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores the journey, creativity, and inspiration behind the songs. My next guest is from Edmonton, Alberta, and is the producer of the solo project Void Comp. It fuses electronica, indie, and alternative rock into a unique atmospheric sound. The project began in 2021 with the release of the debut EP, Last Days. It was followed by the July 2023 release of Metropol, and in late 2024, two singles were released, Control and Only One. So, let's spill the tea with David Jule. Welcome, David.
Thank you for having me.
David, I'm interested in this project that you've been working on for quite some time. First of all, how did you come up with the name Void Comp, and why did you decide to name the project that?
Well, I was playing around with different names for a long time. I always find picking names to be one of the trickiest things about starting a project. And I had left Vancouver, and I was living with my parents in Moose Jaw temporarily, and I was watching Blade Runner with my dad, a movie I'd seen a couple times. But as we're watching it, in one of the early scenes, Harrison Ford's character talks about this Voight Comp test that they do. In the movie, kind of the general plot is that there's androids and humans living together, and they can't really tell who's who. And they do this Voight Comp test to determine whether somebody's human or not. And the way he pronounced it, I heard Void Comp, and that instantly kind of grabbed my ear. I thought that was an interesting name, not really something I'd heard before. And I just liked the kind of connotation behind it, like what does it mean to be a human or not? And it just kind of stood out to me, and I decided that, hey, that'd be a pretty cool name. So I quickly looked it up on Spotify to see if it was taken, and it was all free, so I just ran with it.
So when you've named some of these other songs that you have in the project, the EP you called Last Days, and then the release is Control and Only One, are they all about the same kind of genre, that Blade Runner kind of theme?
Not specifically, but I do think a lot of my music kind of skews towards the darker end of the spectrum. And I really like to explore through my music, what does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to be me? And also kind of touching on some of the cultural themes at the time. For example, control is I guess I was thinking about that word a lot. It's something that I've been hearing come up a lot in the news. Because like right now we're in the age of massive corporations, billionaires kind of controlling things, controlling social media, controlling culture. So it's kind of something that was on my mind, where people just they don't want to lose control at any scale. Corporations don't want to lose control. People don't want to lose control of themselves. And I feel like that's just something that's kind of been on my mind recently. So no, it's not specifically related to Blade Runner, but some of those kind of dystopian themes are always kind of percolating in the back of my mind.
So what's the test to find out if we're human or not?
It's a series of questions that you need to answer. I don't remember exactly, but it's mainly like they're called replicants in the movie. Basically, they ask you a series of personal questions like, how does it feel when you think of your mother? Talk about like your favorite childhood memory, and they just kind of gauge your response and kind of watch your eyes and watch your facial expressions to see how you kind of react when you talk about these seemingly personal memories in your life.
Well, I've got one. If somebody were to ask me, how would you feel if the Leafs won the cup? I think I would break down into tears. So they would
Yeah,
instantly know I was human.
yeah, that'd be a passive.
So educate our audience on the difference between your genre, the electronic genre of music, because many people think when they hear electronic, they think DJ. They think,
Yeah.
the the DJs that get up there and they mix and scratch and do all kinds of things on stage.
Mm.
How do you differentiate what you do with respect to what they do?
Well, my thing is all about live instrumentation. So when I'm playing live, I'm singing live and I'm playing synthesizers or guitar live. I do use a few backing tracks like drums and stuff, but for me, it's all about I'm not just up there pressing buttons and like triggering things. I am playing the thing live, and I think that kind of live self-expression is kind of, I mean, the elements are electronic, like synthesizers and electronic drums, but it is a full-on live performance with real instrumentation going on. So yeah, I don't know how to DJ. That it, it does fall under the electronic umbrella, but that is like a different thing from what I do. I'm not up there like scratching discs or anything like that. I'm up there with a keyboard and singing.
Now, you've experienced the music scene in Moose Jaw, Vancouver, and Edmonton. What are the similarities and the differences between the music scene in those three areas from your perspective?
Well, I mean, every city kind of has its own little DIY music scene. Even Moose Jaw, like Moose Jaw is a pretty small town, so there's only a few different bands at a time. Vancouver is obviously much bigger, so there are multiple different scenes kind of fragmented. There's like the kind of indie scene, there's the hip hop scene, the electronic scene, and there's some crossover, but not too much. Edmonton feels a bit more, I guess, I don't know. I feel like in Edmonton there's a bit more like cross pollination. I feel like people are into everything. I don't really know many people who only listen to one kind of music anymore. Like myself included, I'll listen to everything from electronic music to hip hop to classical to metal. Just kind of depends on my mood, depends on the time of day. Edmonton, the scene is smaller than Vancouver, but I feel like that does make it more accessible and welcoming in a way. So when I first moved here in 2022, I was just kind of settled on getting settled in. I wasn't really too involved with the local music scene. But then I started going to local open mics, some local shows, started meeting people, going to events set up by Alberta Music, and started meeting people that way. And it's been a really, yeah, really welcoming experience for me.
I talked to a an artist that recorded their first album back in 1997, and I asked her about the differences between recording then and recording now, and she said, "Well, back in '97, you actually had to go into a full out studio. With your education now and the technology that's available to you, is it is it easier to produce your own music now and get the same level of quality as opposed to needing to go into one of those a big professional studio and have it done in there on I forget what it is, 2-inch tape?"
Yeah, it's definitely easier now. I mean, all you need is a laptop and some software and some basic like microphones, audio interface, and that can get you pretty far. Um, there is still a need for those bigger studios, especially for if you're like a big rock band and you like the feeling of like the band in the room feel, like everybody in a room together recording. It's hard to replicate that in like a one-bedroom apartment where I record. So like if I wanted to record live drums, that I would go to a studio for that. But you can also buy a kit and like set it up in your basement. A lot of people do that. There's definitely been a rise in the DIY recording effort. I mean, there's a guy from Edmonton called Mac DeMarco who kind of became pretty popular about like 15 years ago. He's like an indie artist, and now he's like pretty popular worldwide. And his whole thing was he plays and records everything himself. So he bought like a 4-track Tascam cassette recorder, drum kit, and just like plays all the parts himself. He plays the guitar, bass, drums, sings, mixes it himself, and then records it. And I think when you're doing something all by yourself, if you have the skill and the equipment you need to have that kind of creative control over it, is really what kind of drew me to being a solo act in the first place. Because I was in bands in Vancouver, and while the band dynamic can be really fun and it's fun to jam with your friends and write songs together, I always felt like I was in the back of my mind, I always had my own ideas that I just kind of wanted to keep for myself. And so that's kind of what started this project, where I'm the one calling all the shots, and ultimately it's all up to my taste. So yeah, I enjoy doing everything myself as long as I can.
Artificial intelligence is making ways into our lives on a day-to-day basis, very much so in the business world, but it's also starting to infiltrate into music and into artistry. And we hear stories about streaming platforms that are creating their own artificial intelligent produced music in order to put on playlists so that they will, they take away from the royalties that are paid to other musicians. When people hear about the electronic music and the technology that you're using, how do you feel about artificial intelligence and being used in the music business, whether it's artistic or not?
I'm definitely not a fan of the artificially created artist. I think it's a detriment to culture, really. I think, I don't know, I just feel like one of the things we have, like this might get a little heady or whatever, but I think one of the things that makes us like special, I think, about being humans is being creative. It's not something I think that's uniquely human, but I do think it is something that we do really well. Like self-expressions are just for the sake of self-expression. I think we need to be really careful about outsourcing creativity to an AI. I think things can get pretty weird. It kind of grosses me out a little bit. I do think it has its place just as a general tool. Like sometimes I'll use it for, like, if I'm stumped on a rhyme, I'm like, I need a word that rhymes with this, 3 syllables. Just give me some ideas. Sometimes it's helpful for that kind of thing, but I would never use it to like write a full song. To me, that's just like, that's not what an artist does. Like, I pride myself on, like, I wrote this, I came up with the chord progression, I came up with the melody and the lyrics. And yeah, I've heard that, like, yeah, Spotify's allegedly creating, yeah, like AI artist, AI bands or whatever. I mean, that's just like, I'm not a fan of that. And like, who is that for, really? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel people like connecting to real people. And I mean, I guess you could spoof an AI and try to pose it as a real person, but I don't know. I'm not a fan of that overall. I think that's something that we really need to be careful of.
Let's get into one of the songs that David wrote. This song is from the Void Comp solo project and was released in May of 2025. Let's take a listen to singer-songwriter David Jule and his song, Need a Little.
But you won't hear me out. Fess it out. But you won't face me now. Be in the middle of a fight, can't you see I need a little love? Can't you see?
was Need a Little by David Jule. David, tell us, what is that song about and what was the inspiration to write it?
I guess when I came up with that song, this one's kind of weird because usually songs take me a long time to finish. Sometimes it's 6 months from start to finish, usually on average. This one came together pretty quickly. I think 80% of it was done in an afternoon, really. It's one of my simpler songs because the chord progression is pretty much the same through the song. The differences come from more in like the instrumentation, the vocal rhythm, the percussion, and lyrically what I was thinking of was just, it's when I was writing it, I mean, it's still definitely true now that there's a lot of tension in the world, politically especially. I feel like a lot of people are, when you go online, all you see is people pointing fingers at each other, blaming each other, calling out this group or that group. And there's not a lot of people just trying to spread positive vibes, which I think is definitely what we need more of. And this song, like my music, I think sonically, definitely on the darker end of the spectrum, but I do think the lyrics are a little bit more optimistic in this one, in a way. So yeah, the chorus is, and I'm in the middle of Havana, can't you see I need a little love, which is kind of like, it just kind of came to me out of nowhere, like most ideas do. They just come out of nowhere. You don't really know where they come from. And I liked the rhythm of it. It sounded kind of catchy, and yeah, just kind of in the moment, it felt right to sing, and it felt like it kind of captured what I was feeling. I try not to be too literate or too literal with what I'm writing. I like to keep a more kind of stream of consciousness and try to not overthink every little lyric. Doesn't necessarily need to make sense on paper. It just needs to feel real in a way. So I think I accomplished that with this song.
David, how do people find out more about you and your music? What's the website? What are the socials? And what are the streaming platforms?
I'm on every streaming platform, Voidcomp, VOIDCOMP. I'm mostly active on Instagram, so it's just voidcomp_. That's where I post most of my stuff, share most of my updates. And yeah, so Instagram, I'm on all streaming platforms. Listen to me wherever you want. Bandcamp as well. Check out my Bandcamp if you want.
We have been in conversation with David Jule. David, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.